Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ, over there in Maryville. Grant Ramey, friend of the program, not been on the pod yet. Everybody else, like I have Brent Hubbs jostling me yesterday, seeing him, and he's like, "Oh, it's been 3 months since I've been back in the pod." It's like he was on a few weeks ago. So we like to have a lot of variety here of the good folks over there at Volquest. And Grant is someone that he and I saw some things 2 months ago at the Alcoa Bearden game where the lights went out. Grant, how are you?
In the middle of a play, the lights went out. In the middle of like a third down play, pretty important moment in the game, fourth quarter, not much time left, pretty close game. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. A little bit
and they didn't redo the down, by the way. Like they were just like, nope, we're just moving forward.
I guess the play was almost over. It was like he was throwing to the sideline. I think he's throwing it away. But yeah, they just kind of kept going, whatever, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be like, no, we're redoing that. You don't know. I could have made a great catch. It could have been Julio Jones on the perimeter. You don't know. Right. He could have come down with it. Lights don't go out. Also, you're always in black. Do you wear black a lot? I feel like I've only seen you in black, Grant Ramey.
I think that's something where the older I get, the more black pieces of clothing I obtain. I don't know why. It's just happened that way.
Okay.
I don't know. That's a great question. It's not something done intentionally. It just kind of happened.
Okay. It's funny too, because you're the funniest on the Volquest message board. So you don't have like the dark demeanor. You're more of the funny guy to lighten the GQ.
The jokes just make up for the lack of intelligence. I gotta cover some ground there to so nobody sees through it. Paper over it a little bit.
Oh, I don't know about that, Grant. But we'll talk some basketball in a second, because I have some heaters for you on no SIGs, but I do have some heater questions for you on the Tennessee basketball front, Grant. But my first question to you: what do you think was the biggest difference between the Vols at Kentucky on Saturday and what you saw from the Vols 2 weeks ago at Alabama?
Oh boy, the run game, being able to lean on the run game. And that's a lot of credit to that is to Alabama and their defensive front. There haven't been many teams, maybe only Alabama, that's really shut down Tennessee's run between the tackles. And Tennessee really needs to lean on that run heavily. You saw the importance of it in the third, fourth quarter at Kentucky when it looked like that game could go either way. They had a 4-minute drive there to bleed out the clock in the fourth quarter. Dylan Sampson was huge. Jalen Wright was huge earlier in the game. This team, to reach its potential, to be its best, it's got to run for 200, 220, 230, whatever that number is, because that's the number they've consistently hit. And when you don't do that at Alabama, as well as they played in the first half, despite not being able to lean on that run game, it's just hard to sustain it for 4 quarters, especially against a really good team in Alabama, on the road, in Tuscaloosa, at Bryant-Denny, all that stuff. So I think it's being able to lean on that run game first and foremost.
It is funny, too, and I think Joe, the last 2 weeks, I mean, he's played his best 2 games the last 2 weeks, right? For you?
I would agree. I think getting him involved on the ground is a big deal. I think he runs that read option or whatever it is to the left. It's almost like a sprint out option. I guess he runs it to the right as well, but it feels like he makes the right read on that play a lot. It gets him some physicality going early in the game. It probably gets some of that amped up anxiety, energy, whatever, to start a game kind of out of the way, kind of helps him settle in. I think that is part of it, because Tennessee fans want a Hendon Hooker in Joe Milton, and Joe Milton's not Hendon Hooker. But if he can run, and if he can get those 3, 5, 6, 7 yards, whatever, to make it second or third and manageable instead of second and 10 or second and 12 or third and 10, that's a big deal. And I think when he's involved in the run game, I think that helps him settle in. I think it helps his passing game. I think it helps him just be a little bit more natural and a better quarterback.
It's weird. I mean, that's a game changer. If the Milton we saw at Kentucky is the Milton we see the rest of the way, I mean, completing 86% of your passes, I think that's doable. I think anything less than 85% the rest of the way, unacceptable. Exactly. We've seen the best version of it. Like, this should be steady Eddie from here on out.
Let's go 90%, push 95. I mean, incompletions at this point, unacceptable, Joe Milton.
Unacceptable. Grant, he runs the tight ship here in the Volquest quarters. Do you feel better about Mizzou now? Because this is something I've been wondering, is like, you didn't feel good, and if I'm Josh Heupel and company, I'm like, no, you're giving us a day game. Like, I want no part of Columbia at night, and seeing how some of these night games for Tennessee on the road in the SEC have gone. And then we've seen the alternative of like LSU. Sleepy 11 a.m. kick is where you want to be if you're Tennessee. You practice and then you just jump right back out there, and it's like they don't really know what hit you. Virginia was like that in Nashville. Unfortunately, we won't get that, what we saw 2 years ago with Tion Evans and company at that 11 a.m. kick. But it does seem like 3:30 is very much in the cards. And I feel like if you're a Vol fan, you want this to be 3:30, right?
Yeah, you do, and I think a lot of that depends on what happens Saturday. Obviously, Missouri's got to go to Georgia. I believe it's I can't remember what Alabama's schedule is. Alabama somehow
LSU.
affects what could be LSU. That's correct. Huge week for Alabama, LSU as well. So I think that depends on that. Yeah, it's unfortunate that it's not going to be a noon, because something about these Josh Heupel teams, they love a noon or even that 11 a.m. local time kickoff. I think the way they answered at Kentucky and the way they found ways to win that football game in the second half makes me feel a lot better about them going to Missouri because of the way they fell apart in the second half to Alabama. And that was an ugly loss, and that's an emotional loss. And had an opportunity to do something really special in Tuscaloosa, and you couldn't finish the deal. For them to come back and stay on the road against a pretty good Kentucky team, a Kentucky team that had throttled Florida at home a few weeks back. To answer the way they did, that makes me feel better. The pass defense doesn't make me feel great after giving up 372 to Devin Leary, but I think you're trying to shut down Ray Davis in that game. So it just depends on kind of what team shows up at Missouri. Do they run the ball as well as at the elite clip that we've seen them? And do they get back to playing better pass defense? A lot of those questions they got to
answer. I think I have I have a sneaking suspicion that the pass defense is not going to be better next week against Mizzou. My gut tells me Mizzou and that offense and Luther Burden and company. Because like Luther Burden over the middle, I don't know if Brent's sleeping right now. Grant, you can check in on this, but Brent thinking about Luther Burden over the middle over and over again for Mizzou and Columbia. But I feel like that's probably on the menu for the Tigers. But I just feel like for me, I don't, and I'm curious if you feel the same. I think Tennessee's going to have to score like 45 to beat Mizzou in 2 weeks. Like for them to get a win, I don't think they're going to be able to get away with the 35, 30 even. I think you're looking at 40 plus, because any of the folks waiting on this defense and the pass defense and company to have a big weekend on the road in Columbia. This Mizzou offense I think is really good. I think the defense has a lot of holes, and I think Tennessee will be able to exploit a lot of them, but I think Tennessee's going to have to score 45. Like if they're in the 30s late in the fourth, I don't think Tennessee wins this game.
Yeah, and I think that means a fast start and a sustained fast start, not the touchdown drive at Florida and then give up 20 in the second quarter. Yeah. This as explosive as Josh Heupel offenses are and have been the last couple of seasons, I don't think this brand plays well from behind because they have to lean on the run game so much. I mean, you saw it in that first drive at Florida in the second half. You're down 19, and it was like a 14-play drive that went 70 yards. Took like 9 minutes off the clock. They had to burn a couple timeouts. Like this team just doesn't chase points very well. So I think they're going to have to start fast and play on even footing. I don't know about getting down 7-14 on the road, whatever, something like that, and trying to come back. I do think the pass rush. If the pass rush is better, if they can get home more than they did against Kentucky and Devin Leary, that can help the pass defense. Obviously, losing Kamal Hadden and the way that he had been playing the last few weeks hurts. But I think also the pass rush, not getting home on Devin Leary, hurt them at Kentucky too. So I think that front four has to get back to the sack numbers and stuff that we've gotten used to the last few weeks, or maybe the season as a whole, to be better at Missouri and help that pass that secondary a little bit.
Which is the player that you're most interested in getting snaps against UConn on Saturday?
Oh boy. The obvious answer is Nico. Everybody wants to see Nico. Wants a second half out of Nico that he didn't really get against Austin Peay back in September. I think for me, it's still Dylan Sampson to get a bigger piece of the pie, I guess. What we've seen from Dylan Sampson, he's played a huge role this entire season. It's not like he's some nobody who's going to come in and get mop-up duty snaps. But I just want to see him get bigger piece of the pie because I think he's that good. I think he's been that productive this season. I want to see more of him catching passes. I want to see more of him getting more touches, more consistent touches, more drives. I would like to see him in a more prominent role in that running back rotation because we saw what he did in the fourth quarter at Kentucky and how impressive he was there. I would love to see him, what he would do as really the guy, and maybe even give Jalen Wright a little bit of a break.
Yeah, and I think that's got to be it going forward. You saw something like if you get a good half, or Jalen's tapped out a lot in this series. I mean, Jabari is just like, he's solid, but at this point, we're now at the end. Like, this is gut check time. This is like, you have to just write it out. Don't worry about keeping guys fresh the rest of the way. Like, you're in the back end of the schedule and you're trying to get to 9-3, 10-2, best case scenario, but you might as well just, you know what you have now for certain in Dylan Sampson and Jalen Wright. And I just feel like let Jabari get the vulture TDs late in the drives if that's still where we're at, what we saw a year ago. But I think at this point, if you still go back to where we have like a whole quarter of Jabari Small, you're like, you're just shooting yourself in the foot for no reason. Like, Dylan Sampson has to be a factor earlier than he's been sometimes this season.
Yeah, Jabari's tough and he's creative, and I think he's patient, and he gets some yards that maybe some other backs wouldn't based on that patience and some of his vision. And I would much rather have Jabari Small than not have Jabari Small.
Yeah.
I think it's a great problem that Tennessee has in the backfield. And somebody's got to talk to Jalen Wright about tapping out at the 6-yard line. That's not when you want to leave the game. That's the money time. That's the reason you only have one touchdown. And Dylan Sampson has 7, 8, whatever the number is at this point. But what we've seen from Dylan, just the way he keeps producing and the limited reps he's really gotten at this point in the season, and his production compared to those reps, it's a really, really promising future. And it's a great problem to have, trying to juggle 3 really good running backs.
Let's say the Vols went out. What do you think the odds are of that for you, Grant? Of them actually winning out? They haven't lost a home game since Georgia in 2021. I think the odds are pretty good. FPI has Tennessee, I think, with like I think they had 71% chance of beating Kentucky. I think it's like 55% chance of beating Mizzou. And then you haven't lost a home game in 2 years at that point. Like, I don't think it's crazy. I wouldn't put over 50%, but would you put it somewhere at the 40% range?
Yeah, because they've been so tough at home, because we saw what they did against Alabama last year. And Georgia's kind of had a thing where they kind of play with their food a little bit. It's almost like they're really good, but sometimes it's like, why are y'all messing around and not blowing this team out the way you should? I mean, Kentucky went down there. That was a big game. They beat them 51-13, and they got down 7-0 against Florida on Saturday, and then they came back and hammered Florida. So, and the whole health of Brock Bowers, that's a whole different situation, and that hurts that offense because he's that good. And just because Tennessee's earned the benefit of the doubt at home, they've been so tough at home under Josh Heupel. 12, 13 games in a row, something like that. It's going to be a crazy, crazy atmosphere, especially if Tennessee can go to Missouri and get another road win and set that up to be, a top 15 showdown, whatever it would be. I mean, that would be huge. It'd be the craziest atmosphere since Alabama, and we saw what happened against Alabama. So there would 100% be a shot that Tennessee could do the unthinkable.
And the great thing, too, if you're a Vol fan going into next week, is that like Mizzou has to get beat up by Georgia. Even if they escape with a win, they're going to be battered. Like, it's kind of like when you get A&M after Bama a few weeks ago. Like, how different does Bama or A&M Tennessee look if they don't play Alabama the week prior? I think that's a sneaky important thing going into that Mizzou game, is they got lucky with the schedule there a little bit.
It is. It's almost like that old Alabama thing where you come off of playing Alabama. It doesn't feel like that quite as much anymore. It feels like Georgia is that new one. And to go to Georgia, what's Missouri, 7-1 at this point? Georgia's 8-0. I mean, that's one of the bigger games schedule-wise, ranking-wise in this SEC that we've seen this season. So the timing really benefits Tennessee, but obviously going on the road, that does not benefit Tennessee. That's going to be tough. But going to Georgia first is going to be pretty rough on Mizzou, you would think.
Basketball. You're back on the basketball beat, Grammy. I just combined your name, Grammy. I don't know if you ever had that nickname, but Grant Ramey. There you go, Grammy. When you look at Freddie Dillione, because I think there's been a lot of interest from Vol fans about where he would fit in this rotation, because this is the deepest team you could argue that Rick Barnes has ever had. I wonder if it's going to be a disservice, and this is an early one, and I don't know if you've asked Rick about this, but because he's had the turnover problems out of the gate here a little bit, Steph Curry, this is going to be the ultimate Vol GQ. Like, look, Steph Curry, I don't know have you seen this? Have you heard about him? He had a lot of turnover problems early on in his NBA career. Mark Jackson let him work through it. He played next to Jared Jack. He got more comfortable. The turnover problems went away. And that's just part of the deal. It's like playing point guard in the NBA is the hardest adjustment of any of the positions moving forward. I wonder if Dillione's not going to get the opportunity, because Gainey's playing a bunch of minutes right out of the gate here. Right. And I wonder if they're going to have to turn to Dillione later on this year, and he's not going to have the reps, and he's not going to be comfortable enough to be that guy, that I just think he's the sneaky most important player for Tennessee to have a deep tournament run, because I think his ability as a combo guard to create stuff when things get super tight is going to be what ultimately sets Tennessee apart. Because Gainey, who looks like a good addition, he's a shooter, and I wonder how that works with the guys Rick's going to want to go with. And maybe I'm overthinking before they played a regular season game, but I am a little bit concerned about where Freddie Dillione's going to fit early on, because I think he actually needs to get reps, and I think Rick needs to be okay with Freddie Dillione failing while they figure stuff out for the majority of the year.
I think Rick is sending a message a little bit to Freddie, not starting him these first couple exhibition games, kind of giving him a little bit limited minutes. I think he wants a little bit more out of Freddie. I think he wants a little bit more push out of Freddie. He's going to have to let him play through the turnovers. He's going to have to let him play through some defensive lapses. I think that's why you have the non-conference schedule. I mean, they got some big games. They've also got some bye games where it's going to feel a lot like exhibition. So I think Freddie will be fine. I think Freddie will play a big role in this team. I think Rick is just a guy who he's old school. He tries to send a message, and in his mind, the best way to send a message is limited playing time. And you're going to sit there on that bench and you're going to think about it. And I think that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get Freddie. And they did leave him out a little bit against Michigan State and let him struggle a little bit. And Rick talked about that after the game, and he wanted that to happen for Freddie to see that and to have him work through that adversity. I think long run, Freddie will help this team. He'll be fine because he's too talented not to. And like you talked about, creating his own offense was something that was sorely missing from this Tennessee basketball team last year. I think Dalton Knecht can do that. I think we've seen that early on. I think that's going to be a big deal. But Freddie's got to do it as well. And Zakai's going to come back, and Santi's going to come back, and they're going to have a lot of guards at their disposal. But I think Freddie's going to have a piece of the pie when stuff gets serious down the road.
I think that's going to be the toughest decision Rick Barnes going to have to make when we get to March and some playoff basketball, is that I don't think you can roll with Zakai and Santi down the stretch, especially when you have Meshack out there, because we know Meshack is his best defender, on-ball defender. He is going to play. I don't think Asante, Zakai, and I love these guys individually. Asante, Zakai, Meshack, Triple J, Adu, closing five is going to survive. Like, I get the defensive part of it, I get the veteran part of it, but I just think you're going to have to roll. And maybe it's Knecht, maybe he's that guy, but I don't want to say burned, but like, I need to see Knecht be a significant part of this rotation. Rick Barnes to trust Knecht defensively for months at a time before I'm ready to be like, yeah, this is the transfer guy that Rick's brought in that's offense first, that's gonna play and actually be a significant part of this. Because remember how Tyreek Key started last year, right out of the gate, and Victor Bailey and guys before. Like, there's optimism from time to time here, but I just kind of want to see it before I jump all in the Dalton Knecht. But are you in the same stratosphere here?
Yeah, I mean, coming back from Michigan State Sunday, that was the thing going through my head was, we saw this before, and it was a year ago, and it was in Frisco, Texas, and it was against Gonzaga, and Tyreek Key scored 26 points, and he had played well in the second half against Michigan State in that scrimmage they had last year in Knoxville. They scored 99 points. It felt like this was going to be a different offensive team, and then, 5 months later, that's a very, very long season, college basketball season. You're going to take a lot of different shapes and forms. You're going to turn into something completely different by March than what you are in October playing exhibition games that don't matter. I think Dalton is an NBA level talent. I think he's got the size. I think he's got the skill set. I think he's going to put in the effort on the defensive end that's good enough for Rick. I think he's going to be a huge piece of the puzzle here. But I am kind of in the same boat where it's great to go to Michigan State and get a win and to score 89 and to shoot it the way you did. But I also need to see it happen consistently for long stretches of the season, for those offensive efficiency numbers to be a lot higher than they've been in the past before I kind of be like, yeah, this is what this team is. They're going to be defensive minded. They're going to be physical. They're going to have really good defensive efficiency numbers. But I'm going to have to see that offense over long stretches before I really buy in and think this is something that is going to be a huge factor in March.
Your gut feeling on who's the opening five next week for Tennessee?
Are we assuming Zakai plays? I think.
Well, you're the insider here, Grant. What do you think?
I think there's a shot he plays Monday. I think that's the plan.
I would be surprised if he started.
I don't think he'll start. I think you would go. Let's see. Dalton's in there at the 3. Joe's in there at the 4.
Okay.
Adu at the 5. Santi at the 2 and Gainey at the 1. I think that would be my starting 5. Bring Freddie off the bench somewhat early, see what you can get from Zakai if he does play. I think it'll be extremely limited minutes just to kind of knock the rust off and kind of get the whole when's he going to return question out of the way. But I think, I think Dalton's a starter all season. I think Adu's your starter all season. I would go Josiah at the 4 because I think you're better playing small ball with this group. Because I love Tobey Awaka, I love Jonas Adu, but I need to see them kind of in the same boat, consistently produce and avoid foul trouble, because we just really haven't seen them in huge roles for this team, having to be productive in those roles, I guess. Play
Also,
more
Adu,
than just
you see it all the time. The dude can shoot. Like, he's going to get open threes, and every pregame, you just watch Adu, top of the key in the corner. Like, that unlocks so much for this Tennessee team if he gets comfortable taking those shots consistently, because I think he actually has pretty good touch for a big guy at the top of the key.
Rick's talked about it since the day he stepped foot on campus. This guy can step out and shoot it. And then you saw that corner 3 at Michigan State, second possession, or the second made bucket, I guess, whatever point in the game that was. I mean, if he steps out and makes those shots, it's huge. It changes things. I need to see those guys perform consistently in the post, because I think they're a little bit thin down there. And I need to see them avoid foul trouble. They're going to play physical, aggressive defense. You got to be disciplined and avoid foul trouble. I think that's a big thing. So they're going to have to play small a lot, I think, with Josiah and Dalton at the 3 and 4.
There you go. Grant, what can the good folks check out from you across Volquest.com this week?
It's that crazy point in the year where it's football, basketball overlap, and I don't know what day of the week it is, and I don't know what coach just got done talking or what he said or what's going on. So it's nonstop football coverage around the clock. 6-2 Tennessee football teams. It's a fun time to be a Tennessee fan after the last couple seasons and the success they've had. And UConn this weekend, hopefully it's not Austin P 2.0 and they play a lot of young guys and then roll into that Missouri for a huge game there. And I can't wait for Georgia and Vanderbilt to come to town in November for those games as well. In basketball, man, going to Wisconsin next week, next Friday for a late night game. That'll be a lot of fun. It's like they're on a Big Ten tour. A little bit, and then they go to Maui later in the month. That's a loaded as any tournament bracket I've ever seen. So it's a fun time of year where these two sports intersect, and there's going to be a lot of intrigue, obviously, with both teams.
We got Illinois on CBS now, right? Like, didn't Tennessee, Illinois got picked? Yeah.
December 9th, I think, something like that. It's a noon game Saturday. That'll be a lot of fun. The non-conf, and they go to North Carolina on November 29th in that new ACC SEC challenge. So that'll be another fun one too.
There you go. Volquest.com. Subscribe today if you are not already, and read good folks like Grant Ramey each and every day. Grant, thank you as always for the time, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.